It doesn't matter what the policies are, baby. It don't matter no more. It does not matter whether we pass a budget. It won't matter whether or not, we get this kind of health care versus that kind of health care. Because at the end of the day, you will have no voice to vote on it. You will have no rights under it. You will have no way to protest it. You will have no way to even maybe, gather with friends to talk about it, because this opens up a slippery slope otherwise. So when you're going into this process and you're looking at these candidates and you're thinking about November, worry less about what you like or don't like about a policy and worry more about who's actually going to be there when it's time to think about big issues like, my rights, my freedoms, the rule of law.
Hello, and welcome to the Politics Girl podcast. I'm your host, Lee McGowan. Let's get into it. Donald Trump is now the official Republican nominee for President of the United States. A twice impeached former president who stole top secret documents, tried to overturn the last election, is under felony indictments, and has been declared guilty of rape by a civil court. He is the nominee of the party that used to call themselves the Party of Law and Order and Family Values. Between Project 2025 and Agenda 47, it's clear that a second Trump presidency would be the end of American democracy as we know it, and the beginning of a white Christian nationalist kleptocracy, with Donald Trump at its center. To ensure this happens, and following the authoritarian playbook, Donald Trump has already started consolidating power around himself, shrinking his inner circle to only include family and true loyalists. Nowhere is this behavior more obvious than with the restructuring of the Republican National Committee, where Donald Trump's hand-picked leader, McDaniel, is out, and an election-denying sycophant and Trump's daughter-in-law are in. To talk to us today about what it means for the RNC to now be headed up by Lara Trump and Michael Watley, I'm joined by former RNC chair and co-host of the new MSNBC show The Weekend, Michael Steele. Michael is the former lieutenant governor of Maryland, who was an incredibly successful leader of the Republican National Committee in the days before Trump, breaking fundraising records and winning the biggest pickup of House seats in modern Republican history. His leadership produced 12 Republican governorships and the greatest share of state legislative seats since 1928. So he understands the job. And when Rana was out, I couldn't wait to get his take on this. So without further ado, please welcome my guest, former chair of the RNC, host of the Michael Steele podcast, and co-host of the MSNBC's The Weekend, Michael Steele. Welcome back, Michael.
Hey, it's so good to be hanging with the politics girl. Here we go.
Well, thanks for coming. I mean, when I saw that change of the RNC leadership recently, I thought, oh boy, right?
Yep.
And then I thought, I got to ask Michael about this.
Yeah.
So, tell me what you are thinking.
Well, look, the object of running any successful political organization is organization. Who would have thought that you actually had to be organized as a party? And that means having highly qualified, capable operatives in place to execute a plan. Oh, there's a thought. Let's have a plan that's part of the organization. These are the two things that the RNC has been lacking for some time. It is not well organized or well run because it is run like a Trump organization is often run, and that is top down, one person centric. And there's no plan. There is no plan to actually go out and win elections. Don't have to ask me or think I'm crazy. Just look objectively at the success of the party since 2012. So the reality right now coming home is Donald Trump decides he wants to have this organization, this structure, mimic him. So he's put a election-denying chairman from North Carolina in his chair, and his daughter-in-law, who has absolutely less than zero experience in running anything political other than being married to the son of a guy who unfortunately is the former president of the United States. So that's your backdrop. They come in, and what do? They immediately fire everybody and think that is, look, I did that when I went to the RNC, but I did it a year and a half out before an election, not 7 months. And what you basically do, you go, okay, everybody just submit your resignation. Everybody gonna get their job back, but it's just a process because there are some players that you do want to move out. Everybody streamlines after an election. not before an election. And so there are a lot of aspects of this that are problematic for the party's organization on the ground among the states to win elections. And then you layer on top of that the coup de grace, which is, oh, by the way, every dollar that comes in, this percentage is going to the Trump campaign. This other piece is going to go to pay off his legal bills, and whatever is left over, we get to actually go out and win elections.
Yeah. And so here's what I'm going to tell people. Like, listen, if you don't know the story that the two of us are talking about, Ronna McDaniel, whose real name is Ronna Romney McDaniel, she's Mitt Romney's niece, and Trump made her drop the Romney because he doesn't like Mitt Romney. She was chosen to run the RNC by Trump himself in 2017. She was recently reelected to a fourth term, and she was supposed to be in that role until at least 2025. But this past February, she offered to step down and make room for this new Trump-approved leadership. So Trump had been making it pretty clear that he believed the RNC had not been aggressive enough, like supporting him in his 2020 claims that the election had been stolen, despite the fact that McDaniel herself had been incredibly active, spreading his lie, being involved in his fake elector scheme, while also paying his legal bills. But Trump felt that not enough resources were going to him, to finding him better lawyers, filing him more lawsuits. And he now believes that the RNC wasn't training enough poll watchers. And I use that term very loosely because these are not watchers. These are poll soldiers.
Stop you right there?
Yeah, of course.
That is not the role and function of the RNC. Our job is not to train poll watchers. That is largely a state party function, and that is done in coordination with boards of elections. There is a process there that typically happens, but I'm not spending donor money on training poll watchers in the state of X in the county of Y. That's just not how this works. And that tells you right out of the gate, Lee, how messed up this operation is and is going to be.
Absolutely. I mean, essentially, they weren't building enough of an army for him, and he didn't like it. So he has replaced the people that were running it, really from top down, with people that are his absolute yes men. There had been a resolution. People should understand there had been a resolution at the RNC to ban paying any more of Trump's legal bills, but that failed in a vote. And then Lara Trump came in, and as Michael was saying, she's already said every single penny of the RNC funds will be going towards getting her father-in-law reelected. And this is bananas. This is not how you run a national organization. This is not how you run an organization that is in charge of more than one candidate, for crying out loud. And this decision to me, and tell me what you think about this, but it feels a lot like what Project 2025 lays out for the plan for the country. So they're kind of doing it on a small frame as the plan for the RNC, but it's this kind of concept of centralizing everything around one person, purging everyone who isn't a loyalist, using kind of career civil servants or career RNC people and getting rid of them to bring in a bunch of sycophants and getting rid of staffers to put in loyalists. So let me ask you, if the RNC is no longer spending their money getting out the vote, reaching out to undecided voters, making sure their messages line up, and it's all about getting Trump what Trump wants and every single penny will go to Trump, how does that fare for other Republicans running in 2024?
I mean, it sucks. It sucks real hard for them because what the RNC is about, in particularly in a presidential election cycle, is yes, the focus is on winning the presidency. There's no doubt about that. The presidential candidate comes in and basically puts their imprimatur on the party. But the presidential candidate wants a Senate of his party, wants a House of his party. And so that means down ballot races matter. And having that organizational structure in place matters. And in a lot of cases, what is not really well understood by the general public is the RNC has operationalized a lot of that before it gets to the convention and a nominee is chosen. So when they come out, a lot of that work is done. Those infrastructure pieces are on the ground. You're building out. You sort of develop the strategies with your state parties. You've identified where this presidential candidate has strength, where they have weaknesses, where the bottom can raise the top, and where the top can help the bottom, right? So it is a very delicate balance oftentimes in trying to make it work. When you come in and you upend it all. You take out people who built the structure, right? Then you begin to dismantle the structure and then want to add all these other wacky pieces like, oh, I don't know, let's go spend a lot of money on polling. What you've set up is a recipe for not winning. And so in one sense, this is a typical Trump playbook. They put in place strategies that are effectively not winnable strategies. And where I think you're going to see some real angst is from some key state parties that are going to be complaining about not having the resources that they need to kind of push through to the finish line. These are going to be some very close races. It's not just the closeness of the presidential race. The Senate control hangs in balance. Whether or not the House returns to the Republicans or do they lose it outright, if they lose it by how much, if they keep it by how much. So all of these things are races that are at the margins. And then you layer on top of that state legislative races, governor's races, et cetera, and you begin to see the importance of making certain that you have really solid people who understand not just what's at stake, but the states that they're in and how to get those states to win.
Yeah, no, honestly, you just wrote an article on this new leadership and how it was already undermining what the RNC had in place, right? Like they are specifically scaling back outreach to minority voters, and they are replacing the party's Bank Your Vote program, which they had created to kind of get Republicans out to vote early to sort of counter the Dem votes that vote by mail and vote early. And they're putting all their money and attention into launching a new program specifically targeted at voters skeptical of Trump, which I think is like, oh, Lord. And then you pointed out in your article that they've already hired Christina Bobb to serve as senior counsel for election integrity, which is, of course, ironic because Christina Bobb was one of the top lawyers trying to sell us on the big lie in 2020. And then, of course, they're firing state directors and all these lower ranking state staffers who understand the states they're working in. And the question is, who are they replacing them with 7 months out from the election? I mean, these were the people in charge of getting out the vote, understanding their state. And I understand that a vote at the federal election might be a bit tougher for people who are turned off by Trump, but they still need to get people out to vote for, like you said, state legislatures and those kind of things. So it's no longer the RNC, it's the TNC, right?
It is. It really is a Trump National Committee. You put the description out there perfectly in terms of how it's setting up, but then pull the lens back a little bit more and you begin to look at the Heritage Plan, Project 2025. So what you're seeing at the RNC is a microcosm of what the intentions are with the federal government when Donald Trump takes control. Centralized control with one person at the top, everything reporting and flowing up to him. Don't get this twisted, people. I've been in the room with Donald Trump when he's doing business, and everything comes to him. Nothing happens without his sign-off. Nothing in his world happens without his sign-off. That's why you saw in the 2020 cycle Donald Trump talking to low-level federal government employees going, why the hell is he talking to the undersecretary of what? Because he wanted somebody to move a piece that better positions his objectives. And so that's why you see these folks who sort of, show up out of nowhere suddenly being, leaders in situations. They're like, why is this person leading? Because they've already told Donald Trump, I'll do whatever you want me to do, baby. Just put me in charge. I'll make your ends meet. And so this is the whole thrust of Project 2025. It is to get people like Laura and Michael Watley, who is the chairman of the RNC, in place, in position, in federal jobs, who will then report up to Donald Trump that he can call directly and tell them, bypassing their line boss and bypassing protocols, go directly to the people that he knows will do what he wants. That is how he runs Trump Organization. That is how he wants to run the federal government. He could not do that in the 4 years he was president because there were too many people who said, time out, wait a minute, Mr. President, that's not the way we do it, or that person doesn't have that line responsibility, et cetera, et cetera. And he's like, oh, okay, next time we'll get it the way I need it to be.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing. He talks about Schedule F, and Schedule F is something he put in at the end of his last term. And it was about how he could purge all these civil servants, anyone that wasn't exactly
Right.
a yes man to him. And that's all part of Project 2025. And let's take a little sojourn here to who Michael Watley and Lara Trump are for a second, because if you don't know who is running the RNC now, Michael Watley is North Carolina. He's been in North Carolina running the Republican Party there for a while. And you might remember North Carolina as the state with the Democrat who switched sides in the state legislature. That happened. And she was elected, and then she switched sides from Democrat to Republican, and she gave Republicans a supermajority in that state. Now, that was obviously deeply shady and would have been bad enough if the state didn't also have a 5-2 far-right Supreme Court. So now the Republican supermajority in North Carolina in the House is working in partnership with this conservative Supreme Court and passing all kinds of outrageous laws, and the court is just rubber stamping them. So North Carolina citizens can't even say like, hey, listen, this law is outrageous. You can't do this. We're taking it to court, because the court's already in the bag for the right. So I think we have to be clear that Michael Watley is actually very good at doing this. He's very good at getting rid of democracy. I think he was chosen specifically because he is good at this. Like, North Carolina itself is not a red state. It is a purple state. North Carolina has a Democratic governor, a Democratic AG, a Democratic Secretary of State. But that same Republican supermajority, working in tandem with that Republican court, has been doing everything they can to expand the Republican power there and make sure those Democratic representatives have basically no power and no voice and no ability to govern. And I think Michael Watley kind of was at the top of that at the RNC there as that was kind of coming down. And so I think Michael is actually a pretty interesting choice. I think that makes sense. He is not only a, election denier and a Trump loyalist, but he's also very good at what he does. And then you flip over to Lara, which is, of course, she came on the scene as Eric's girlfriend. She sat on the board of his charitable foundation, the same foundation that was later accused of diverting donations for children's cancer charities to the Trump organization. I mean, this is like, ugh. They both left the foundation after Trump became president, when they were basically selling access to the president through their foundation. So they had to leave the foundation. Lara became full-time MAGA. They paid her money to, speak and be sort of a surrogate for Trump himself. She became kind of a fan favorite at Fox, where she got a job. And then when Trump started running for office again for this election, she had to leave the Fox gig because Fox doesn't like people who are directly connected with the campaign to be there. But she's started a right-wing podcast. She worked for Inside Entertainment, Insider. She was a model, a swimsuit model, a Hooters girl, a singer.
But she was not a county chairman. She was not a state party
this is the
chairman.
thing. I mean, at the end of the day, look, Lara Trump is obviously been hired because her last name is Trump, and she will look out for the Trump family. But she is also kind of doing this full about face in regards to who she is. She's turned into this very Christian speak person. She's saying things like God has chosen Trump and he is a weapon for the country. She recently spoke at CPAC, and she said that she and Eric make their children recite the Pledge of Allegiance every night before going to bed. She said that her son should grow up to be a masculine man, and she tells her daughter that in America you get everything through merit and merit alone. And then, without a shred of irony, she followed that statement by thanking her father-in-law for giving her the job to run the RNC. Like, the whole thing just feels like that emoji where your head is exploding.
Yes.
It just feels so shocking. And I think if you are a regular Republican, a normal Republican, a classic Republican, you have to look at this and be like, what are we doing here, right? What's happening with this party?
I have a lot of those conversations with a lot of Republicans who don't quite honestly know what to do next, where to go next. There is no landing platform for them. These are folks who, unlike, my friend Bill Kristol, do not appreciate the value of switching and becoming a Democrat. And I respect that. My key thing is you don't have to switch, baby. Just vote for Biden. Okay. I don't care if you switch or not. Just, put the vote in the right bucket. That's all.
Yeah. Just keep democracy's head above water,
Just keep democracy's head above water, and we'll be good. We can have the discussion about all that on the other side, because we're then not focused on trying to, stave off an individual who wants to tear up the Constitution. But that is a real thing. So when you're looking at the RNC piece and its dysfunction, you see that played out in the Freedom Caucus in the House. Mike Johnson now is sitting there with the sword of, Damocles, meaning, vacating the chair over his head. And because Marjorie Taylor Greene is the de facto leader of the Republican caucus. Thank you, Kevin McCarthy, because Kevin didn't have the kahunas to just kind of say, Marjorie, sit down and shut the hell up. Right.
Well, let me ask you, because literally let's look back at the speakers of the House. John Boehner bailed because the Tea Party people were making him insane. Then Paul Ryan bailed because he was like, I can't be part of this whole shenanigans with the Trump and the this. And Kevin was ousted. And now we have, like you said, Mike's on shaky ground again, because they agreed to have one person be able to call for a vote to vacate the chair. Everything is dysfunctional. People have to be able to see that this party is not a functioning party. They are not a governing party. They're not a functioning party. They are an obstructionist party at best, but they're actually just a failed party right now. And this is your party.
Yeah, it is. And it has been very frustrating to watch. But keep in mind, Lee, this is not, you forgot Newt Gingrich.
Well,
remember,
I've never forgotten. Yes, but Newt is also this whole hate the enemy, Democrats are evil. That all came from Newt, and I will never forget Newt.
Right. No,
Newt made us evil.
Well, that started in the late 1980s. It's
don't reach across the aisle.
1994, right? And so, but then even after all of that, and he gets the gavel. Within one cycle, he's gone. He's ousted, so my buddies, Joe Scarborough likes to talk about and brag a little bit about ousting Gingrich, and those true to the core conservatives did not like this kind of scorched earth approach to governing. And yet, even after his ouster, there was not stability. And so that instability that has existed within the House, which is representative of the instability across the party nationally, continues. And it continues to this very moment. And so what you have is the Mike Gallaghers deciding, you know what, I'm just going to leave. I'm done.
Right? So many of them just leaving.
A lot have left.
That's what I'd love to talk to you about, because Trump is wholly unconcerned with consolidating support and bringing the party together. He's been very clear he has no time for McCain Republicans, no time for Romney Republicans. When Nikki Haley dropped out of the primary and said he would have to earn her supporters' votes, he told them all point blank he didn't want them in the party, that if they didn't vote for him, he didn't want them. So what am I missing? Because you can't win a general election with all of those people not in your party. Did you know that traditional bed sheets can hold on to more bacteria than a toilet seat, which can lead to things like acne, allergies, and stuffy noses? Well, it can, which is why I'm so happy to tell you about Miracle Made. Miracle Made offers a whole line of self-cleaning antibacterial bedding like sheets, pillowcases, and comforters that prevent up to 99.7% of bacterial growth and require 3 times less laundry. Using silver-infused fabrics inspired by NASA, Miracle Made sheets stay cleaner and fresher 3 times longer than other sheets. Plus, they're just really nice, incredibly luxurious bedding without that incredible high price. So stop sleeping on bacteria. Sleep clean with Miracle. Go see for yourself. Go to trymiracle.com/politicsgirl to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift, if you order today, you can save over 40%. Plus, if you use our promo code politicsgirl at checkout, you will get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep today with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/politicsgirl and use the code politicsgirl to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/politicsgirl to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for continuing to sponsor the Politics Girl podcast. Support for today's episode comes from OneSkin. Did you know it's important to shift your skincare routine with the seasons? Things like dry, flaky skin, redness, even fine lines and wrinkles are a reflection of what's happening at the cellular level. So give your skin the TLC it needs to stay healthy, smooth, and hydrated as we move into warmer weather. Founded by 4 PhDs dedicated to skin longevity, OneSkin proves you don't need a complicated routine to achieve better skin. Their topical supplements make it easy to help your skin stay younger and healthier without a lot of extra steps. OneSkin products are powered by their scientifically proven peptide called OS1. This peptide reduces the accumulation of damaged, aging cells, the cells that make your skin less resilient and more prone to lines and wrinkles. Instead of masking these issues, OneSkin addresses them at a cellular level, boosting your skin's natural barrier to lock in moisture and help protect against the elements. They have a full line of face and body products, including OS1 Shield, an SPF that prevents UV-induced aging and repairs cellular aging all at once. That's the one I have to order next. I've been using their eye cream for a couple of months now. The texture is great, and I like how quickly it absorbs. I also like that OneSkin believes that the purpose of skincare is not just to improve how we look, but to optimize our skin's biology so that it's more resilient to the aging process. It's next-level skincare. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. By focusing on the cellular aspects of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. Get started today with 15% off using the code PoliticsGirl at oneskin.co. That's 15% off at oneskin.co with the code PoliticsGirl. And after you purchase, if they ask you where you heard about them, please support the show and tell them we sent you. New year, healthier skin. That's OneSkin. Finally today, I wanted to talk to you about the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. My son Lochlan has been helping his friend Emma to raise funds to support a future without blood cancer. Emma is part of the Student Visionary of the Year program, and she's been working all year for a fundraiser that is happening right now. The Leukemia and Lymphoma Society is the largest blood cancer nonprofit in America, and it's raised over $1.6 billion since 1949. And one of the core pillars of their charity and fundraising work is advocacy, which is the program our kids are involved in. It's a pretty amazing program. Overall, LLS has helped patients in over half of all U.S. counties. One of the initiatives Lochlan and Emma are particularly focused on is the Dare to Dream project, which deals specifically with childhood cancer. The mission of Dare to Dream is to create a blood cancer treatments specifically for pediatric use, so they're safe for children during and after treatment. Right now, only 5% of cancer drugs have been approved for use in children, so 80% of childhood cancer survivors often developed critical and chronic health issues as a result of their treatment. So they beat one illness only to get sick with something else, and LLS thinks we can do better than that. The Leukemia and Lymphoma Society is working extremely hard to create a more stable pediatric healthcare system, particularly here in the States, where many states don't even have pediatric hospitals. Leukemia is the most common cancer among children, making up over a quarter of all childhood cancer cases. So Emma and Lochlan's goal is to raise as much money as possible over the next couple of weeks to bring that number down and to advocate for patients and their families who aren't necessarily able to advocate for themselves. I really hope you'll consider making a donation by using the link in the show notes or on the Politics Girl link tree. This is such an important organization, and I hope you'll consider helping our blessedly healthy kids make a difference to these completely deserving sick kids. Again, the link will be in the show notes or on the Politics Girl link tree. Thank you so much for considering. What am I missing? Because you can't win a general election with all of those people not in your party.
So let's go back to how we started the conversation. So when you have your presidential candidate tell voters who've been in a primary fight supporting another candidate that when the primary fight, he's now vanquished that candidate, right? And he looks at her supporters and go, I don't want your support. I don't want you because you're all rhinos. What do you think happens in state party organizations around the country that are trying to campaign and pull those very same voters into the mix? You know what, Donald Trump, it ain't just about your election. I need those voters to vote for our candidate for governor, or our candidate for in this congressional district, because it's an R+3 district. So I need those extra Republican votes in order to hold the line there. Or it's a D+2 district, and we can take that seat. So you begin to see the fundamental lack of understanding of how politics works, and how, yes, you go through and you can beat your opponent, but then on the other side of that, you have to say to your opponent's voters, hey, y'all, I know some of y'all not happy right now, but I'm going to be okay with you, and I hope you're okay with me. Let's work together, because our goal is to win this seat. It is to take the presidency so that we can then, here's an idea. put together policies and positions that will move the country forward, which we haven't done. So we just go out and we still sloganeer, repeal and replace Obamacare. With what?
With what?
With what? You've got no plan. With what? And so this is the frustration that state party chairmen have. They're not going to say anything publicly. They're not going to go out and go, oh my God, would you just shut the hell up because you're hurting us? No, they'll just sit there, they'll grin and smile and watch the vote in their state evaporate. And we're already beginning to see some signs of that. I'm not a fan of national polls, but when you look at the state polls in battleground states, while Donald Trump was once ahead, it's now an even race. And so for Joe Biden sitting even in a point ahead in Wisconsin, even in Michigan, even in Pennsylvania, right? When he was down by 3, 4, 5, 6 points, at this stage is a good day for his campaign. State of the Union repositioned his campaign and his race. That narrative actually struck a chord with a lot of voters. They liked what they saw in him. What have we seen of Donald Trump since then? Whining, belligerent behavior, ugliness, calling names, and fighting battles in court. Even though he may win here or there, he's still in court.
Yeah, and general incoherence.
General incoherence, yeah.
I mean, listen, I can't watch those speeches. I'm like, where are we now? I don't know what we're even talking about now. I just like all over the place. I mean, man. All right. So listen, you recently wrote that the RNC has to get real about where it finds itself as it continues to purge this legacy and follow Trump down this path of destruction. And you were questioning how the Republican Party survives the 2024 elections, let alone this next century. And do you think it does? And kind of more importantly, do you think it deserves to?
This version of the party does not deserve to survive. No. I've said for some time right now, this version of the Republican Party desperately needs a political enema.
Yeah.
It needs to be cleaned out. The MAGA infection is real. It has taken hold of some once credible and competent political actors who had legitimate beef, if you will, with some of the policies of Democrats and made the case, but have since fallen into the Trumpian behavior of just performative BS, name calling, and ceding that power and authority to the likes of Marjorie Taylor Greene and eschewing the responsible approaches by individuals like Nikki Haley. There was a real sweet opportunity that I think Nikki Haley missed because of bad advice from political operatives who were too cautious, to be polite about it, and did not have her from that very first debate when she commanded the stage to stay in that command position. She did not have to take her pinky toe and stick it in the Trump water to prove that, oh, Donald Trump, I'm still okay with you, because, baby, his voters were never coming to you. They were never coming to you. And these Republicans need to get their head out of their behind thinking that Trump voters are going to support them. They are not. They are there for one person and one person only. And if your name ain't Trump, it ain't you. So that is the truth. And so when you're looking at it in totality, you have to wonder, even beyond 2024, where I still believe Joe Biden will, in the end of the day, prevail. And I think the House is lost. The Senate is the toss-up right now. And I think the Republicans are now finding themselves in a more weakened position with the Senate, even though they have the numerical advantage, meaning Democrats have more seats to defend than they do.
Yeah, the map is much better for Republicans.
The map is much better, but the candidates
in a traditional race, but the campaigning is hard, and they're banging their head against the wall of Roe over and over again.
And so that's an excellent point. So you now have this space, which is why Mitch McConnell, who is nothing if not a crafty master of positioning your narrative to win, has been saying to Republicans since 2018, do not play the abortion card in this environment. We will not win. We may win the battle, but we're going to lose the war here. And that's kind of been proven over and over again. And you're going to see it in spades now that you've layered on top of the baseline abortion discussion IVF. And on top of that, you're now going to be laying over because you've got the Clarence Thomas wing now wanting to tell women, I'm sorry, you can't have contraceptives either. And by the way, even going back to the Griswold decision, what is the state interest in whether or not you use contraceptives? What is the state interest in what you do? It's like telling a woman, I'm sorry, you can't take aspirin, or I'm sorry, you can't use this kind of makeup, or I'm sorry, you can't wear your hair a certain way. I mean, in other words, it's a personal choice. It's a personal decision. And okay, am I losing my mind here or what? I've never understood it. But here we are, again, layering on top of all of the other injustices that have been put in front of women, and it is women. And the thing about it is, it's men making these decisions. That's the kicker.
You don't need to tell me, Michael. You don't need to tell me. I'm outraged daily.
To the choir here, but that's what I don't understand. The true Republican nature is this is not the space we belong in. It is core to the argument I made in 2010 on Obamacare. My legitimate concern that the government had no role between you and your doctor when it came to your health care. Now, look, I'll admit today, okay, some of that was wrong thinking, I guess, and it's played out okay. There's still some aspects with respect to disparities and things like that where there's still inequities in the system. And it is now more like Medicare and Medicaid and seems to have worked. So I'm ready to raise my hand. Okay, I won that battle, but lost that war, right? So I get it and I understand it. But at least I made the case. I made a cogent case for limited government role in that space because I believe that those choices should be left to the individual to make, irrespective of the broader narrative about the provision of health care, who has access to health, insurance, et cetera, and so forth. And that was a good policy debate to have. But this now is fundamentally different because what it involves, Lee, is we're having a discussion about a right that our Supreme Court found legitimately in the Constitution, an individual liberty right. And that's been taken away. And as a pro-life Catholic, I can recognize and be honest about that, as everyone should be, right? Put my political hat on, and I'm like, okay, there is no space here for government to tell a woman or any individual how they decide their health care and how they decide what's best for them. And we now find situations, and I know we've kind of gone down this conversation on abortion, but it really speaks, I think, in a lot of ways to where the party has tripped itself up by not fundamentally understanding the connective tissue between my personal decisions and my right to freely make those decisions. And so it extends to, how I go about dealing with my pregnancy. It goes to how I go about becoming pregnant. And it goes to how I go about preventing pregnancy because of my personal decisions and situations, et cetera. And now all those three things are coming home to roost, and Republicans are sitting there, let's not talk about it. We just won't bring it up. Okay, good luck with that.
Yeah, good luck with that. Honestly, they're not even dog that caught the car. They're dog that caught the car and held on. They're getting dragged, and they should be, here's the thing. When you were running the RNC, you were winning, right? And you were making, as you said, public policy cases against things that we disagree on. Like, I am a big supporter. I grew up in Canada. I really do think that the government should have a part in healthcare because it makes us free. It makes us more free. If we're a free country, I don't want to be stuck in a marriage because that's where my healthcare comes from. I don't want to be stuck in a job because that's where my healthcare comes from. I don't want to when they get rid of the Affordable Care Act, if this Republican Party comes back in, I have a pre-existing condition. Like, I will be uninsurable. That will kill me. These are very serious things that I do think the government should take care of. And I also think that most other nations in the world, 75 nations in the world, have some kind of universal health care, and we just don't. And I think that is a mistake. So I really do think that is something you and I would have had a policy discussion about back in the day if we were talking. But that was when the Republican Party was making policy cases. And now, as you say, they don't do that anymore. They do nothing but showboat. We were just talking about the fact that as we film this, they're considering not funding the government again and floating an idea of replacing their speaker. Like this is not a functioning government. This doesn't serve anyone. This is chaos. And ultimately, to your point before, like people might not want to vote for Democrats. You're like, don't vote for Democrats. Just don't vote for this Republican Party. Like, let's just get this Republican Party has to die. So the real conservatives and the real policymakers and the people that we could have a discussion with can be back in power. Because ultimately, I would like to be having a policy discussion. I would like to be saying, what do you think is best for the American people? And what do I think is best for the American people? And can we come together? And is there a way that we can negotiate this? That's not what's happening now. It's like, you're evil and baby killers and this, and, like we're going to that's not running it. And none of this helps the country and none of this helps America. I mean, look at this terrible accident that just happened in Baltimore, right? Immediately, right-wing media and personalities were on the air blaming this catastrophic accident. And this is the one, if you don't know what I'm talking about, where the cargo ship lost power and control and rammed a bridge in Baltimore. And a lot of people lost their lives and obviously died in terror. And they're blaming it on the border crisis. They're blaming it on COVID lockdowns. They're blaming it on the transportation, on DEI, on the transportation secretary. Like, I'm sorry, I didn't know Pete Buttigieg was driving all foreign tanker ships. Like, none of this makes any sense, but it also just does not serve the American people. It's sick. This is a horrible tragedy that should bring Americans together. And yet we're politicizing it from one side to blame things that aren't the problem, to keep people angry and supporting them when it doesn't even serve them. And it hurts my heart. It's bad for the country and we need to move past it. This version of the party must be defeated.
Well, you have, I'll never forget watching my first TikTok video of you. And I had it popped up in my feed and I saw this woman in her kitchen who made more sense than anybody in the space that I operated in. And what I still believe you reflect, and it's a very important lesson for my party, is an attitude, a concern, and a set of convictions around big, small kitchen table issues that resonate with a lot of Americans. And in order for this party to reemerge on the other side of this, it has to take stock of what you've said in your kitchen, and you're not going to do it by putting an over-rehearsed member of Congress, a U.S. senator, in her kitchen
to terrify us all with her funny baby voice.
Because this is so important.
Shame on you, Michael. Shame.
I mean, come on. If you stop it.
Stop it. Just stop it.
Go out and find the people who actually are real people. Voices like yours, I think, carry a great deal more weight and are going to be very, very important to establishing the narrative. Again, not necessarily for one candidate over the other, although in this case, it's clearly going to be about electing someone who's not going to tear up the Constitution and use it as toilet paper.
Or use the word bloodbath.
Use the word bloodbath. Exactly.
I don't care what you were talking about. Who says bloodbath? Like, sure, you're talking about the auto industry. You're talking about the country. Like, once a leader who wants to run a giant country with the biggest military in the world is using the word bloodbath, I don't know what we're discussing. Bloodbath should never have come out of his mouth.
Out of your mouth. But that's the thing. That is a common sense response. And what's critical right now is to get people to focus on their common sense reaction to the things they're hearing. You know damn well 99% of the time when Donald Trump opens his mouth, your mama told you at one point in your life, you need to stay away from that kind of crazy. You know you don't want to be hanging out with that. You know that. That's a boyfriend, that's a girlfriend that your mama told you about and said, you know what, baby, I don't care what they look like, sound like, that's trouble. You know that. And so that's what I've appreciated about you and why I've stayed on track with you and even admitted to your husband that I love you, that, it's just, your husband's a great guy. He took it all in stride, folks.
He does. He
like,
does.
It was like everybody does. I was like, I know they do. But this is truly, I think, the moment we're in where it is kitchen table voices that will make the difference. Everyone's looking to the politicians to solve this. I'm looking to the American people to fix it. And that for me begins with sort of wiping the fog of Trumpism out of your eyes. Sure, you may have liked his policies and you didn't like his behavior, but that's another time. What you need to focus on now is, what does this country look like for your granddaughter? What rights are you willing to sacrifice as she grows up? And what does that world look like when she becomes an adult and have to make very adult, very personal decisions? But you sat quietly and silently by as this iteration of the Republican Party stripped away the value of her franchise, the value of her freedom. And now she's locked, having to comb the globe to go someplace to get health care. And folks, it's not even necessarily an abortion, right? It's other aspects of her health care and your son's health care and your son's, opportunities, your daughter's opportunities. It's your kids, it's your grandkids. So keep doing that, because I think it's important. I mean, the politician types, the value of their voices is less and less with each passing day, because they capitulate so quickly and so easily to performative BS. And more people are seeing it for what it is because of kitchen conversations like the ones you often have.
Well, I appreciate that so much, Michael. And you've just done a beautiful pitch for my book coming out in September, which is called A Return to Common Sense.
There you go. And
because,
I did not know that.
because, what are we doing here, right? Like, it's, we need to just return to our basic values and be like, what do we believe in? What do we believe American values are? What can we stand behind? And do these politicians and these policies line up with our values? And that's really where I came from. Now, you just did it, before you go, you just did a moment of clarity on the Michael Steele podcast about someone who is a Republican and how they can vote for Joe Biden. Will you just leave us with a sense of what you said before you go, so that people who are Republicans or people who are like, yeah, this just does not seem like me anymore, but like, how do I vote for a Democrat? Like, can you just give them a sense of that just before you go?
I'm so glad you touched on that, because if you've been in party politics and even if you've not played a role, but you've just been active, you're an active voter, you supported Republican candidates like George Bush, 41, 43, or Ronald Reagan, or, Chris Christie for governor here, or Bob McDaniel for governor there, et cetera. You have this strong sense of loyalty, not just to the brand and the party, but to what it stands for. Understand this. The things that those individuals stood for and still stand for is exactly what's at stake in this election. And so understand you need to relax a little bit. No one's asking you to give up on those values. No one's asking you to choose something that is antithetical to your core values. If your core values are freedom in the Constitution, the liberty, the provision of rights,
the rule of law,
right? That's what you're voting for. And when you look at the candidates, just ask yourself, who stands for those things? Not whether or not, they got a policy done here that I don't like, or something they said over there that I'm not crazy about. Who stands for those things? Because if you take those things away, it doesn't matter what the policies are, baby. It don't matter no more. It does not matter whether we pass a budget. It won't matter whether or not, we get this kind of healthcare versus that kind of healthcare. Because at the end of the day, you will have no voice to vote on it. You will have no rights under it. You will have no way to protest it. You will have no way to even maybe, gather with friends to talk about it, because this opens up a slippery slope otherwise. So when you're going into this process and you're looking at these candidates and you're thinking about November, worry less about what you like or don't like about a policy and worry more about who's actually going to be there when it's time to think about big issues like, oh, my rights, my freedoms, the rule of law. And that's where you place your vote. So for me, that was part of the discussion I had to have with myself in 2020 before I endorsed Joe Biden, because I'm a former national Republican chairman, and now I'm going to be going out and supporting a Democrat for president. It's crazy as hell. It's dangerous as hell. But you know what I realized? I love my country more than my party. Sorry. Yeah. It just matters more. Yeah. Because it was here before the Republicans, and it'll be here after the Republicans. And so that tells me the country matters. And so it's important for us to recognize that. So people, don't be afraid. It's okay. You know, it's okay to just go out and vote for the person who stands for the Constitution and stands for your rights under that Constitution. And you'll be okay. And then you can go cuss Joe Biden out in his second term about all the crazy shit he's doing.
Sure. Go cuss him out. No problem. But what I honestly, Michael, it's hilarious because I have a rant coming out today from my kitchen where I say, like, are you more committed to that R beside a candidate's name than you are to your human rights, than you are to your Social Security, than you are to your Medicare, than you are to your daughter's rights, to your son's rights, to the future of this country, to democracy itself? Is the R more important than small d democracy? And at the end of the day, people need to say, maybe not this time.
And so to if I could just help you a little bit with that rant.
Oh, you're going to workshop it with me? Let's do it.
Workshop it with you. I love where you're going. So the question is, are you more committed to the R behind the name or the R in front of the name? So the R behind the names is Republican. The R that comes in front, that's first, is rights. The R that represent the rights of individuals. And so that for me is this election. When you're looking at Donald Trump, when you're looking at Republican candidates, are you more possessed by the R behind their name? Are you more concerned and moved by the R that comes before their name?
Yeah, so, that's great. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Michael. I always love talking to you. Please tell people the best way to follow your work and help keep up with what you're doing.
Well, I appreciate that. So we're doing a lot. I'm having a great time with Alicia Menendez and Simone Sanders Townsend on the weekend, every weekend on Saturday and Sunday mornings from 8 to 10 a.m. on MSNBC. And we just have great conversations like this. And I think it'd be a lot of fun to get you on the show, by the way. So just look for the invite.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it.
I think it'd be a hoot to have you come on and share your insights on the ground and from your kitchen. That's a wonderful opportunity, and so grateful for being able to have that conversation, in my time at MSNBC. I've also got my podcast, which you've been on, and we've had a lot of fun, the Michael Steele podcast. We put a lot of money into that name, by the way. So I'm just letting you know, coming. We had to shop it and, run it up a few flagpoles, but
Seems to have settled. I think it was a good choice.
Right.
Yeah.
It just kind of works. So we're doing that. And then, of course, doing a lot of work still in the democracy space, trying to help Republicans kind of navigate their way away from crazy, and create some ports for them to at least pause for a moment, but stay active to the point we were just talking about, being a voice that moves others to say, it's okay to vote for Joe Biden. Your life won't change. You'll be able to get up and go to work the next day. Your kids will still love you. You'll still be able to make breakfast and have dinner, right? But democracy will be just a little bit safer. It'll be a little bit stronger, and we'll be a little less worried about its complete collapse under someone who's told us he wants to be a dictator. So, that's the work, and I just appreciate you. You follow me on Twitter at Michael Steele, another original. I like to keep it simple.
Let's keep it simple. Let's just keep everything simple, Michael. The world's become too complicated. Let's not get crazy. I mean, listen, I I am going to miss it when your party gets it together and we're once again on different sides of the aisle. But I do think that you and I are a great example of how you could disagree about politics, how you can disagree about issues and do it with kindness and decency and the concept of people in real life, because that's something that people have forgotten how to do in this age of partisanship and Trumpism. And I think we should get back to a place where we can have a reasonable debate on policy, but we're still both pro-democracy, pro-rule of law, anti-kleptocratic authoritarianism. And that's what I want us to have. And so I'm so grateful that you came to talk to me, because at the end of the day, this is the kind of America we should have.
Amen to that. Amen to that. I love it. I align myself with your remarks.
Perfect. Well, have a great day, and we'll see you on the weekend.
You too. All the best. Happy Easter and happy, life in the next few weeks of crazy, and just enjoy those moments because they're valuable every single day, because this is such a great experiment to be a part of, and we have to protect it and defend it at every cost. So thank you. At
every cost. Thank you. So that was former RNC Chairman Michael Steele, reminding us to vote for the R behind the name, not in front. Vote for your rights, not your party. This MAGA infection is real. Republican values are still here. They just can't breathe under this current top-down, one-person-centric dictator. We need to recognize that the party has been co-opted. So it's not just okay to vote for a Democrat this cycle. If you truly believe in the values of freedom, liberty, and justice, it is absolutely essential. I'd like to thank Michael for joining us today, and you for caring enough about democracy to be here. Now send this episode to a Republican. Until next week, PG out. The Politics Girl podcast is written and performed by me, Lee McGowan, in partnership with the Midas Media Network, and produced and edited by Happy Warrior Entertainment. All rights reserved.